The glow from Laura's laptop screen cast a sickly blue pallor over Jason's face, illuminating a truth he had never wanted to see. It was an accident, really. A forgotten browser tab left open while he'd searched for a recipe she'd mentioned wanting to try. But there, nestled between real estate listings and Pinterest boards, was a thread of messages that made the air in the room grow thick and heavy. They were to a man named Scott Williams, a realtor Laura had been working with for months. The words were not about square footage or market trends. They were intimate, detailed, and damning. A cold, hollow sensation spread through Jason's chest as he scrolled, each new message a fresh crack in the foundation of his 17-year marriage. He saw the pet names, the plans for clandestine meetings, the lies she had told him about late appointments and client dinners. His mind, a sharp instrument honed by years in IT, began automatically cross-referencing the timestamps with his own memories. The weekend she'd been visiting her sick aunt coincided with a hotel reservation mentioned in an email. The night he'd been up with their youngest daughter, Chloe, while she was working late, aligned perfectly with a text describing what she and Scott had just done. He had ignored the signs, the subtle shifts in her behavior he'd chalked up to stress, the new perfume, the increased attention to her gym routine, the way her phone was always face down on the counter. Now those small, forgotten details rushed back, assembling into a monstrous, undeniable picture. The betrayal was not a single stab, but 1,000 tiny cuts, each one remembered and felt anew. The man who trusted implicitly was gone, replaced by a colder, harder version who understood that proof was the only currency that mattered in the economy of heartbreak. With a methodical calm that belied the storm inside, Jason began to take screenshots, saving each digital love note and incriminating detail into a secure folder. This was no longer his wife's secret. It was his evidence. The unfinished basement smelled of damp concrete and stored memories, a fitting arena for the demolition of a life. Jason had arranged 2 folding chairs in the center of the open space, a single bare bulb overhead, throwing their long, distorted shadows against the cinder-block walls. He stood waiting, the cool, still air a stark contrast to the frantic pounding in his chest. The sound of the door opening at the top of the stairs was a gunshot in the silence. Scott Williams descended first, his polished leather shoes clicking confidently on the wooden steps, a salesman's smile already plastered on his face. "Jason, good to see you. Laura said you had a hot lead on an investment property down here?" His voice was too loud, too cheerful for the grim setting. Laura followed, her steps hesitant, her eyes avoiding the cold, gray floor and instead fixing on Jason with a question he could feel but not hear. Jason said nothing. He simply picked up the small, wireless speaker from the workbench beside him and pressed play. Their own voices, tinny and amplified, filled the cavernous room. It was a recording of a phone call, one Jason had meticulously extracted from a cloud backup, filled with intimate whispers and explicit plans for an afternoon at the Oakwood Inn. Scott's smile vanished, replaced by a waxen pallor. Laura's hand flew to her mouth, a stifled gasp echoing the one from the speaker. Jason let the recording play for a full minute, a public screening of their private betrayal, before he stopped it. The ensuing silence was heavier than before. Scott's smug demeanor had crumbled into panicked disbelief, his eyes darting from Jason to the door as if calculating an escape route. Laura, however, recovered with a viper's speed. Her shock melted into defiance, her gaze hardening as she looked at her husband. She didn't deny it. Instead, she launched into a deflection, her words a torrent of blame aimed squarely at Jason. She spoke of his emotional distance, his long hours at work, his inability to see she was drowning in the mundane currents of their life. She painted herself as the victim of his neglect, her affair not a choice but a consequence, a desperate gasp for air he had failed to provide. Her performance was passionate, almost convincing, but it